Hello, welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month we are looking at women's history, making this week's book The Last Girl, with a very shiny cover. The Last Girl, My Story of Captivity and My Fight Against the Islamic State by Nadia Murad and Jenna Krajeski. Really sorry if I'm mispronouncing anybody's names there. The accompanying cocktail is an Angel's Advocaat, which is 45 milliliters of dry gin, 45 milliliters of Advocaat liqueur, 15 milliliters of vanilla syrup, 20 milliliters of lemon juice, and 1 dash of cardamom bitters. So let's do this. All right, building a shaker. Start with the gin. Nadia Murad is Yazidi, and she was born and raised in the Yazidi village of Kocho, which is Sinjar province, Iraq, in 1993. She was, I believe, the youngest child of her mother. Her father took a second wife not too long after she was born, which not against Yazidi custom. And Nadia said in her book that even though this broke her mother's heart, she couldn't really blame her father. When you're very poor and a farmer, the more hands you have to help with the fields, the more you can plant and harvest, the more everybody eats. Many children makes this possible. You don't have to hire help, which you can't really afford to do if you're a poor farmer. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna need the recipe up on my phone so I can, because it's in milliliters, so I can't just be like, oh, 2 ounces of this and 3 ounces of that. Eyeball 45 milliliters here. I feel like it's just about 2 ounces. I feel like it's gonna kill the bottle. No, it's not gonna kill the bottle, but it's close. I knew I was close, so I bought another bottle just so I'd be ready to go, but we're good. I got it. Eventually, her parents would divorce, leaving Nadia's mother, Shami. I'm really sorry if I mispronounce names. I don't speak Kurdish, so I'm not 100% certain. But left Shami to see to the 11 children they had. So there was 15 total. Shami was the second wife. Her father's first wife, I think she said her name was Sarah, had died in birth or shortly after giving birth. So there was 4 children who needed a mother. Shami stepped in and was married to him and then had 11 of her own. So big family. Despite being incredibly poor, the family was happy. Big ass bottle for 5 milliliters. Oh, I have to eyeball. Ooh. Oh my god. This is thick. This is not pour, and that's probably a hell of a lot more than 5, but that's okay. That is really thick. What the hell is Advocaat? Egg liqueur. A little alarmed by that. All right. Product of Germany. Does not contain dairy or gluten. Apparently you're supposed to shake it. Oops. Well, I did not know that, so I didn't shake it, and now I have very thick, sludgy egg liqueur. That's my fault. Vanilla syrup. Despite being incredibly poor, the family was happy, and that's something that many American families don't have, right? Happiness. There are not a lot of happy American families who actually love each other and are very close. God. Now, the book is broken into 3 parts. All right. Part 1, she describes her childhood, the world she grew up in, what it was like growing up in Kocho, Iraq, the people she knew, the schools she went to, what her dreams were. Logical, right? And throughout this, throughout the whole book, actually, she peppers pieces of what it means to be Yazidi, which is a very misunderstood religious minority. It's so minor that they don't even have an entry in the CIA book of religion. And part of that questionably has to do with the fact that, they were virtually wiped out by ISIS, but more on that in a little bit. The only way to be Yazidi is to be born Yazidi. You can't convert into it. They don't proselytize. They don't look for people to try and become Yazidi because it's literally an inherited thing. Much stricter than Judaism. I know Judaism traces their lineage to the mother's line, but you can still convert in. Can't convert in with Yazidism. Yazidism. I should be using a fresh lemon. I'm just not. So other than the fact that they're not Muslims, and Iraq is a majority Muslim country, Sunni Muslim, I believe. At least ISIS is Sunni Muslim. What happened here? Why is ISIS target the Yazidis specifically? They are a monotheistic religion. They believe in one God who is more or less a remote God, doesn't really have much to do with the running of planet Earth. But he does send his supreme angel Tawusi Melek, I know I'm mispronouncing that one, aka the Peacock Angel, to rule over planet Earth, and the seven other angels, or maybe it's 7 total, regardless. Now, that's about as far as she goes with the core theosophy. But she does mention Tawusi Melek many times throughout the book, especially when things got really bad, which is logical. Things get bad, you're going to reach out to your faith. 1 dash. I did a big dash. Cardamom bitters. Let me shake this up here, because I still have to do the garnish. I'm going to try to do the garnish. But this faith has an angel that watches over them. Is anathema to Islam. I mean, Islam has angels, right? Like they'll mention like the Archangel Gabriel and Michael and stuff. That's not that far off from what Christianity believes as far as that goes. But having one specific angel that they are closer to than God, that's anathema to them. When the U.S. troops withdrew after they took down Saddam Hussein, ISIS kind of flooded into the power vacuum that was left behind there. Oh, I mean, it looks exactly like it did in the picture. Let's see if I can get this twist. You're supposed to do 2 orange twists that form a cross in the middle of the drink. A cross is not a religious symbol to the Yazidi. It's just the that's what they want you to do with the garnish. So, supposed to express it over there. There's one. Playing with knives, it's important to pay attention to what you're doing so you don't, cut yourself. So there, I made a cross. Looks more like a big X. Anyways, an angel's advocate. That is why the cocktail, though, that the angel is so very important. Tawusi Melek is so very important to the faith of the Yazidi. And Nadia is an advocate for the angel faith. So I figured it was a good pick. Where was I? Oh, yeah. ISIS floods into the power vacuum left behind by U.S. troop withdrawals, and the Yazidis were targeted for extermination through execution or through forced conversion. Now, some of the Yazidis got ahead of this, all right? They saw what was coming down the pipe, and they ran for the mountains, where they remained hidden. Not by any metric an easy life, but they lived. All right, they were able to basically forage off the land and survive. Some made it to Kurdistan, which is a section of northern and eastern Iraq. I did find a map online. I will toss it up here so you can see what I'm referencing. Kurdistan is not an official nation state. It's not like it's a recognized thing like Switzerland or Germany or Iraq or Iran, but it's this kind of unofficial region that is largely inhabited by Kurds, which are a very big minority, much larger than the Yazidis and friendly to the Yazidis. Kurdistan was basically a safe zone for them to flee to. Part of that is because the Yazidis, they're all of Kurdish descent. They're all Kurdish speakers. That is their native, their mother tongue. Although growing up in Iraq, she also spoke Arabic and maybe Farsi, but I'm not going to swear to that. Definitely Arabic and Kurdish. The map is great. The yellow part kind of shows where, more or less, where the Yazidi communities of Iraq lived. All right. Late July, early August of 2014, ISIS invaded the region of Iraq where Kocha was located, and the village was put on lockdown. Anyone trying to escape after that was executed by ISIS. So they are all basically just stuck there. Let's try this. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to see if this one grows on me. I'm not quite sure what to make of this one. After they had finished with the surrounding villages, ISIS came to Kocho and rounded up. There was approximately 600 people living in Kocho on August 15, 2014, which is when ISIS finally came into their town and selected it. And that is where part 2 starts. It is just as terrifying and horrifying as you could possibly imagine. They separated out the women and young children. Older boys and men were taken outside and just shot en masse, thrown into a mass grave, and left. 2 of her brothers managed to survive, not uninjured. The bullets missed their vital organs. It left them with severe wounds to their arms and legs. They waited until ISIS had left and then dug themselves out and made their way to Kurdistan. And she would reunite with them later. But as far as she knew at that point, her brothers were all dead, except for Hesni and some nephews and stuff who were in Kurdistan already for work when all of this went down. Women were taken to a second location, and they were further separated into unmarried and married and old, basically. If they were married and or married with young children, they were allowed to keep their young children with them. I don't know what the age cutoff was for that. Married would still be taken just a little bit later. Basically, they wanted to make sure that the woman wasn't pregnant before they were taken to the slave markets. If the children were fairly young but not toddlers, they might be taken in by ISIS and raised to be martyrs to the cause. Toddlers, I think, were just kept with the mothers. It was easier. If the women were older than whatever ISIS determined their cutoff age to be, they were executed. I'm trying to not... It's hard here because I want to cry. I cried a lot writing this. I cried a lot reading it. And I'm trying to not cry while reading it now. When I was doing my read-through looking for typos, I cried a lot then too. I am not sure if I like that one. I think it's the Advocaat. Maybe if I didn't know it was egg liqueur. Maybe if I hadn't read that, but I'm not really a big egg person anyways. I don't know. It tastes weird. Could also be the Cardamom bitters. To be fair, it could be the Cardamom bitters. If they were unmarried, then they were virgins because the Yazidi protect their women's chastity. They were immediately taken to Mosul, where they were sold as Sabaya, singular Sabiya, sex slaves. Nadia was initially picked by a large man, Salman, who took her and Rojian, who was also from Nadia's village. I don't... She may have been related, but I feel like she was just a school friend, but I might be wrong. Rojian may have been a cousin or a niece. On the way to the cash register, for lack of a better terminology, she threw herself at another guy, begging him to buy her. Salwan was so brutish, she was terrified of him. It is unclear if this was a better or worse choice than her initial purchaser. The new guy was Haji Salman. Haji is a title or rank, and he had the authority to take Nadia from Salwan, who was not pleased but had to accept it because he was outranked. Haji Salman forced Nadia to convert to Islam and then proceeded to rape her for a week or more. I'm trying to be clinical here. There's nothing clinical about what happened. She describes in great detail all her feelings, the terror she felt, the helplessness, the misery, the fear for her family and friends. She describes all of it in detail. Waste not, want not, man. She does try to make an escape while with Salman by climbing out an upstairs window while he's in a meeting of some sort. Like, he called all of his fighters immediately to him and they were in a meeting. She was spotted trying to get out the window and ordered back to her room, after which she was gang raped as punishment on Salman's orders. After which Salman sold her or gifted her, it's unclear which, to other fighters. I mean, it's unclear because she doesn't know. She's not sure if she was sold or if she was gifted to him. Every single one she came in contact with raped her. And then one day her chance came. Her newest owner went out to get her food or medicine. After all the abuse, she was consistently sick to her stomach, and something about vomit was just a turnoff for her would-be rapist. And when he left, he forgot to lock the door. I guess he just assumed she was so cowed and so sick that nothing would happen. And she took her move. She took her moment. She saw it and she went for it. And that's how part 3 starts, with her jumping over the wall and making her way to freedom. And oh my God, yeah, I'm not digging this. Don't want to waste anything. But here's the thing: after everything she went through, it would be really hard to keep believing in God, who would allow such evil to happen. Right? Her family is decimated. She's a captive. She's been horribly brutalized. But she never lost faith. And when you realize that in a city with a population of somewhere between 1 and 2 million, we don't actually have an exact census of Mosul, because she was in Mosul, Iraq at that time. And we don't have an actual population count in August of 2014. But it was somewhere between 1 and 2 million. When you have no way of knowing who supports ISIS and who's going to return you for the promised reward and who might have a conscience and be willing to help, she found her way to helpers. She describes walking randomly through an encroaching evening, crossing streets, keeping her eyes down. This wasn't quite as bad as what Afghanistan is today, where all women must be escorted all the time. So she because she was forced to convert, and because it is the way of Iraqi women at that time to wear the full burqa and niqab, She was covered head to toe. She looked just like any other Muslim woman wandering the streets, maybe on her way to market or on her way to visit a friend or on her way to find some place to pray. Nobody bothered her. She's keeping her eyes down. She's avoiding people and realizing that she doesn't actually know which way lies safety. And so she's going to have to make a leap of faith that somewhere in this city of evil, goodness still exists. So she walks up to one house and hesitates. No idea why. Right? She was going to knock. She stood on the doorstep like this and then stopped. And no idea why. Some sense told her, not this one. And so she quietly turned around and kept walking. Found another house. And that one, she knocks on the door and there was a good family in there. And they were terrified of ISIS, rightly so. Because, ISIS isn't just going to confine their abuse to the Yazidi women, but the family was more concerned with justice and what they saw ISIS doing. And they helped smuggle her out of Mosul. Like within a day, they had her out of Mosul. Getting her completely out of ISIS's reach was a little more daunting, but they got her out of Mosul to relatives in the country just outside the city who were also very anti-ISIS. And eventually out of Iraq into Kurdistan, they secured the false IDs and the cover story. One of their sons, the oldest son, so ISIS does this psychological torture. They put it out very heavily that because the Yazidi women had been raped, if they returned to their people, they would be executed for not being pure, which is, throwing rocks through their own glass walls because that's what they would do. But when she was reunited with her brother, her escort, Nasser, he's like, if you don't feel safe, I'll stay with you. And she said, no, I'm fine. And she was, but eventually Nasser would be found out and executed by ISIS. Fuck. Kill a bottle of gin. Let's do it. All right, I got this. Gin that up. Does make you think that maybe Tosi Malik was watching out for her that day. God said, watch that one and help her escape. The book is only a little over 300 pages, like 306 pages. Each section is about 100 pages, and I read this section, or about her escape, in about an hour. It was riveting. And I read it with my heart in my throat, praying that none of this goes sideways and gets her back in the hands of ISIS, which logically I knew would not, because there's absolutely no way ISIS is going to let her publish anything. My God. But I was worried there would be additional setbacks and that maybe this is not the time she escaped. Yeah, more gin winches it out. She was eventually escorted to safety, and her brother Hesni, who, like I mentioned earlier, had been in Kurdistan when ISIS invaded Kocho. When Nadia found the family, they asked if she had anybody outside of Iraq, and she said yes, and she knew her brother's number, and she called him. And at first she kept hanging up because he thought that it was a cruel prank, because ISIS liked to call family members and torture them with what was being done to their women. But eventually they let her speak to him directly, and he coordinated with the family to get her out, and that set him on his life path, helping to smuggle kidnapped Yazidi girls out of Iraq. And he would build up quite the network over time, seeing at least hundreds, if not thousands, freed from torture and rape. But it more or less started with Nadia. Eventually, some of her sisters and cousins would also make their way to freedom, but not all of them. Some of them died while trying to escape, like her closest friend and niece, Catherine. She stepped on a landmine trying to escape. Some remain to this day in ISIS's hands. After some time in the refugee camps, Nadia and one of her sisters would travel to Germany to start new lives. And there, Nadia would become a goodwill ambassador to the UN, speaking about what life was like under ISIS control. Tag on the book says joint winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Terrorism's bad, okay? She would join Yazda. I'll throw a link for that in the profile, in my description. Yazda is a not-for-profit built of Yazidi survivors whose goal is to help protect and champion those who survived the Yazidi genocide. She also has her own website, or her own not-for-profit Nadia's initiative. I will include that as well. The gin helped calm down the drinking or the crying, but now I'm just a little out of it. So at first, Nadia did not want to admit to her family about the rape, which, I get. All right, not women everywhere have a hard time admitting that such a thing has happened to them. It's one of the reasons that rape is so underreported. But a lot of that had to do with that psychological aspect where, they would say, hey, your family's going to kill you if they find out you've been raped. So, you might as well just stay with us. She did eventually figure out they're just throwing stones through their own glass houses just because they would kill their daughters and sisters for having been raped. They projected that out. Yazidis are considerably more forgiving. I'm going to cry again because this is so beautiful. Not the rape, but the Yazidis. After ISIS had been pushed back, not eliminated, they are still working in terror cells to today, all right, through ISIS, Syria. It's the Islamic State of Syria and Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, right? That's ISIS. I know some jackasses are like, no, it's the Levant. Well, the Levant includes Israel, and I refuse to give those fuckers Israel. Too much gin. After they'd been pushed back, it wasn't necessarily safe for them to return to Iraq, but spiritually necessary. Nadia and other survivors made a pilgrimage to Lalish, which is a valley in northern Iraq where Tarusi Melek first came to Earth to connect human beings with God. So naturally, this is a sacred place to the Yazidis. The Baba Sheikh, their highest holy man, he'll come for important events. I'm under the impression he doesn't live there year-round, but he'll come for important events. The returning of so many once-thought lost daughters to Lalish was considered such an important event. So he met with them, and he heard their stories. Told each of them that forced conversion is no conversion at all, which is fair. I actually think that is something most religions would say. It's like, hey, if you're forced to do it out of necessity, it doesn't really count. This is not a heartfelt thing. You're doing it to survive. You're fine. Because you are still Yazidi. This is the really important one. Being a victim of rape did not make you less worthy or a ruined woman. The Yazidi community welcomes you back with open arms, which is a lesson in mercy and compassion that many of the so-called advanced Western civilizations struggle with today. There's a lot of stigma around rape survival. This book was heartbreaking to read through, kind of uplifting in the end. You think about how her own people were like, fuck those guys. You are still Yazidi. Fucking proud, man. It's gut-wrenching to read about what Nadia lost. Her family, her home, her peace. All she wanted to do was open a salon to make women beautiful. The women in her village beautiful on their wedding day. That was her biggest dream. And evil set her on a different path. She has another book coming out this fall. I'm gonna buy it and put it somewhere on my reading list. I'm not sure when yet. Probably in 2027. Because I like the title already. What's the title of her newest book? Because I like the title. It's very positive. I Choose My Beginning. What an amazing title. I can't wait to read that one. Hopefully it doesn't leave me crying like this. This book, Nadia's story, it's a bellwether for the West. She's trying so hard to warn the rest of the world about the catastrophe that is bearing down on us by the flood of Muslim refugees who are invading Europe, Canada, America. And look, she is rightfully leery of all Muslims right now. She's kind of been through the ringer with them. And very clearly not all Muslim, because there was that family in Iraq who helped her. And there's the other families who helped the other Yazidis to escape, because none of them were able to do it on their own. And yes, some of them did it for greed. Heavy bribes have been paid. I think somewhere in there she includes that the average cost of smuggling a Yazidi girl out was between $5,000 and $10,000. Which is an enormous amount, which is why, like, fuck, if you have to give, man, find out who you can give it to, because that's horrifying that anybody is going through that in the 21st century under Islam. Do notice I'm gonna throw again. we all know I'm not Christian here, but I'm going to throw this disclaimer, I'm not Christian. But Christianity has long decried, slavery as horrifying, but it's still very legal under Islam, clearly. So I'm going to just throw that out there. No, it's not all Islam, but enough of them don't speak out. And when you see what's happening, you see things like, but I saw a thing the other day, after we, bombed the fuck out of Iran and fuck the Ayatollahs because they are also assholes. Well, there have been, I know there was a shooting in Texas that was quickly hushed up by the media because it was by an Islamic extremist. The guy literally wore a shirt that said property of Allah. We've had a couple of flights that have been rerouted because of Islamic threats. Those guys have been arrested. It's not as all Islam. It probably is not all Islam. I don't believe in painting with a broad brush. I'm sure there are good Muslims out there who are not terroristic little fucks. One that is largely ignored by the ivory tower academics who preach on behalf of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Ayatollahs. No shit. There are actually idiot Americans right now who are decrying the destruction of the Ayatollahs. The guys who literally hang gay people from cranes because they're gay. Ones who murder women for daring to show a little bit of hair. Who would see us all enslaved to an ideology in the name of tolerance. A tolerance which will never be extended back to those of us who raise doubts. We're told we're simply too stupid to know what's going on or to form a correct opinion. Fuck, I hate academia. This book, while undoubtedly not the correct opinion, will help you make an informed opinion. And I highly recommend it, despite my crying, weeping mess. That should actually be enough for you to know if she's crying this much. I mean, it's going to tear your heart out, but it's worth the read. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next Sunday for, I'm sure, another tear-filled gap fest.